Many international students have excellent English to the extent that they can pass exams, but they have difficulty in the classroom. They speak in a way that is difficult for American teachers to understand. It's a problem that we refer to as TOEFL English, that is, Test of English as a Foreign Language. Someone who has excellent grammar, an appropriate university level of vocabulary, but they speak in a way that is difficult for the teacher to hear and understand. One of the chief problems is in understanding rhythm and cadence in English. And the rhythm and cadence in English are very different from many Asian languages. In this short video, I'm going to draw some distinctions, show some common problems, and then suggest some ways that you can practice on your own to improve your own spoken English to make it much more natural sounding and much easier for native English speakers to understand. We're going to begin by talking about the importance of rhythm in standard English. In spoken English, some syllables are longer than others, and this allows us to emphasize what it is that we're talking about. Look at the first sentence here. Kate would have loved to go on vacation. Tells me that she's really interested in going on vacation. Now, I can slightly change the meaning when I add a subordinate clause. Kate would have loved to have gone on vacation, but her boss wouldn't give her the time off. I'm emphasizing that she couldn't get the time off. In contrast with standard American English, there are several Asian languages for which each syllable has exactly the same length, and these are called syllable-timed languages. Let me overemphasize to make the distinction between stress-timed and syllable-timed quite clear. Stress-timed, I can say, this is a video about rhythm and cadence. Now, if I say the same thing syllable-timed, it would sound very strange. This is a video about rhythm and cadence. So there are two important types of rhythm in languages in the world, the stress-timed and the syllable-timed. English and other European languages are stress-timed, and Mandarin Chinese is as well. This actually makes it slightly easier for the Mandarin speakers to learn good standard American English pronunciation. In Mandarin Chinese, if I tell you I am an American, I would say 我是美国人. Here I'm emphasizing American, 美国人, and I stretch it out slightly longer. In Vietnamese, Cantonese, and certain other Chinese dialects, they are syllable-timed, and to the American ear, they sound cogwheel, machine gun, rat-tat-tat. Let's start with an example of Vietnamese.
Hi, I am a professional engineer, and I'm from Ho Chi Minh City. Xin chào, tôi là kỹ sư và tôi đến từ thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
People in Singapore have very good English in terms of grammar and vocabulary, but often it's very hard for an American to understand a Singaporean when they speak English. There are lots of jokes about this. The dialect is called Singlish, and there's a very funny YouTube video on this by Amos Yee.
There are absolutely no usage of collective nouns and apostrophes in the language at all. So we can't say that we would like a plate of chicken rice. We have to say that I want chicken rice. And we can't say that we see a flock of birds. We have to say I see but. And we also can't say that I like to look at the teacher's table. You have to say I like to see teacher table.
So just a summary about rhythm. There are two main types of speech rhythm, and standard American English is stress-timed. Now let's move on to cadence. Rhythm and cadence go hand in hand. Cadence is the rise and fall in tone. Now, we all know that English is not a tonal language, but we do use tones to indicate sentence ends and clause breaks. Look at this sentence here. Although he was exhausted, he went to the store. Exhausted. Store. It indicates the operative words. Then, exhausted, I stretch that out, and store. We use cadence to add interest and also to signal questions. Here we have exactly the same words. He went to the store. And now we can turn it into a question. He went to the store. Store. I go up at the end. It means, is that where he went? By using some changes of emphasis and tone, we can completely change the meaning of a sentence that is made up of the same words. Let's look at a single sentence. Did you give Kwan the project? When I say that with a neutral tone, it means, has this action been completed, yes or no? But there are lots of other meanings I could give to this to shade some subtleties. I can say, did you give Kwan the project? This means, are you the person who did this action? I could change the emphasis and say, did you give Kwan the project? That means, did Kwan decide to do this by himself or did you assign it to him? I could say, did you give Kwan the project? Meaning, who is it that you assigned the project to? Lastly, I could say, did you give Kwan the project? That means, of all of the things that you've handed to Kwan, did you include the project? Now, in syllable-timed languages, it's actually very difficult to express these nuances of meaning, and you actually have to change the words. Look at this example.
In English, we say, did you give Kwan the project? In Vietnamese, it's quite difficult to emphasize the you. You have to say, are you the person who gave Kwan this project? Which in Vietnamese is, bạn có phải là người đã đưa Kwan cái dự án này không?
So let's summarize cadence. Cadence, rhythm, tone, and emphasis are all bound up together. They're very important in conveying the exact meaning of similar sentences. Mastery of cadence and rhythm leads to compelling, appealing speech. Well, if you're learning English as a second language, you may worry that your rhythm and cadence are not exactly accurate. Let's look at some things that you can do to achieve standard American pronunciation. The first thing is to recognize that there's a problem. Listen carefully to other people and pay attention to the number of times that people say, what? And you have to repeat yourself. If you think you've got a problem with rhythm and cadence, the most important thing to do is to slow down. Here's a good tip for how to practice standard American pronunciation. Watch TV shows and repeat back exactly what you hear on the show.
Wow. You look sensational.
You look so bad yourself.
Oh, this whole thing? I've had it for years.
Wow, you look sensational. What, this old thing? I've had it for years. Here's something else you can do for practice. Imagine that you were a person from your country who had just arrived in America. Speak as if that person had a really, really bad accent. Well, here's the point. If you can exaggerate a bad accent, that will give you some hint as the things that you need to do to move towards a more standard American accent. Lastly, practice using your cell phone to audio record yourself. just pick up a business magazine and start reading articles aloud to yourself. Stop after a couple of paragraphs and listen and see if there's anything that you could improve. So let's just review. Rhythm and cadence are very important in the communication of meaning and making sure that native speakers can understand what it is that you're trying to say. We've learned that there are several things that you can do to improve your standard American accent. The first thing to do is to recognize if you have a problem. And one of the easiest fixes is simply to slow down. Then, as you work on improving your accent, one of the next easiest things to do is just to mimic things that you see on TV and in movies. Practice is to deliberately exaggerate the wrong accent. If you can do it wrong, then you can move further and further towards doing it right. And then spend some time practicing privately by yourself. Pick up a magazine, read articles, but have your cell phone in front of you and listen and see if there are any mistakes that you're making. I hope this is helpful as a little tutorial. Even within a few short weeks, you'll be quite surprised how much you can move your accent much more towards standard American practice.